This is Mel Peterson reporting live from TBH, that's Talento, Bilingue de Houston Theater. And we're going to go inside and see what's happening today because it looks like it's going to be an interesting evening. So let's go ahead and head on in. Alrighty. Woo. All right, let's see what's going on today. So, hello there.
Hey, hello.
Hey.
Hey, what's going on?
Sorry, I'm new to this thing.
It's okay.
So what's going on today? I see there's a lot going on.
Yeah, actually there is. There's going to be people on the panel that are going to be discussing how to get the vote out.
Get the vote out.
Yeah.
Hey. So there's going to be like a whole panel discussion. That's great.
Yeah, there's going to be a moderator and a panel discussion, and they're going to educate everybody on how to go out there and vote and how you do that and who qualifies, who doesn't, and everything you need to know.
That's great. Yeah. Wow. And this is hosted by TBH, is it?
Yeah, Houston Media Source and TBH. We're actually at Talento, Bilingue de Houston here in the East End, which is a bilingual theater in which they serve the local community and everybody that wants to come out here and see some of the productions that they have year after year.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm seeing some people standing in line. Are they standing in line for the voter shows?
Probably.
She said,
hey.
Hi.
So have you guys come out tonight for the show?
What's the show? We're in line where I saw it said TBH looked like a movie theater. We missed our local, so we decided to go check out the Cultura.
Ah, hey, well, actually, this would be the best person to tell you what we're going to be going through tonight.
Hello. What's on the menu tonight?
A lot's on the menu.
Oh, delightful.
Yeah. Consider this like the buffet to end all buffets.
Good Lord.
Yeah, she was wondering what's happening tonight. Do you want to explain the whole voter registration?
Yeah,
voter
absolutely.
registration.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
you know
the reaction.
Just kidding.
Yeah, that's a reaction I had in the very beginning too.
We're very civic-minded, me and my associate here.
Yeah, well, it's actually really easy. It's really easy. Things that you need to know. For example, people that have never done this before, they're like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? How do I find out about this? So you can go to these great websites like my.lwv.org, which stands for League of Women Voters, rockthevote.org, votetexas.gov, and vote411.org. So these websites actually tell you more about the process, how you qualify, and what you need to do, and what district you're in, because I don't even know what district I'm in.
I don't know what day it is.
Yeah, I don't even know what
days. How long do I have to do this?
That's a very good point.
I need to register.
Yeah, you need to register.
Yeah, okay, so I'm glad you said that because important days to remember are the last day to register to vote is a week from today, October 9th.
October 9th.
Tuesday, October 9th. First day of early voting personally is Monday, October 22nd. Last day to apply for a ballot by mail is Friday, October 26th. Absentee ballot request turned in by the 26th of October. This is very important information if in case for any reason you can't go there personally. And the last day for early voting in person is November 2nd.
I've been told to vote early and vote often.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably told to vote early and vote often because you can avoid the lines. And I don't think it really matters where you live. There's going to be lines anyway, but it's always good to get this done early. That way it's out of the way and you don't say, oh, I forgot.
Oh, but hold on. A friend of mine, so they went to go vote nearby, their place.
Yeah.
But they got rejected one time because their address on their ID did not, and their voter registration did not match their current one.
Oh, okay. That's good that you mentioned that as well because some of the important forms that you need to have in mind to establish your ID and your identification are your Texas driver's license, Texas election identification certificate, ID card by DPS, Texas handgun, so those of you that go to the gun range, U.S. military ID card with picture, U.S. certificate for your citizenship, and your passport, which could be the actual passport or the card, because now you're given a card. So.
Y si yo no hablo mucho inglés, prefiero hablar español. ¿A dónde puedo encontrar ayuda?
Forgot my friend to speak much
Oh, well, es bueno que mencionas eso porque para los que no hablan el idioma pueden llamar un número y el número es 1888 VE vota. Entonces así ellos pueden comunicarse contigo y puedes saber todo lo que necesitas hacer cuando vas a ir a votar.
Está bien, gracias.
De nada,
Whoa,
hello.
what was that?
So I'm basically explaining to him this 1-800 number in which you can actually call and find out, more about the voting process in your language. But in addition to Spanish, there's one for our Asian American brothers and sisters, 1-888-API vote. That's Asian Multilingual Assistance. And then there's one for our Arabic Americans, 1-844-418-1682. So you have a lot of options.
It's like
That's
everybody can do
fantastic.
it.
Yeah, everybody can do it. Anybody can
What
do
are the
it.
rules, though? You got to be how old to vote these days?
18.
Right, I
So-
remember that. It's like that and drinking.
Yeah, right. So you have to be 18. This is an important thing too. For a lot of people that might not know, you must have served the penalty phase of either your misdemeanor or felony conviction. Because if you're in the middle of it or still in the process of it,
That
you
is
can't
good to
register
know.
to vote.
That's good to know.
So,
Not that I need it, but friends may.
Life happens and people just need to know. So that way they know their rights as Americans, and then also be a U.S. citizen, be registered, not have been declared mentally incapacitated by a court of law.
Not mentally
Not.
incapacitated, folks. Not.
and must have a valid ID, of course. But if you don't have a picture ID or you lost it or it expired, but it expired and it's been less than 4 years, secondary IDs and forms you can have is a copy or original of these items, government document with your name and address, current utility bill, bank statement, government check, paycheck, or birth certificate.
Hey.
Yeah.
Those are just lying around the
Amazing.
house.
Yeah, exactly.
All over the place. I always have those. Okay, so again, so registration would be the first step, and you could go to those online web links, right?
Yeah, you can go to the
register?
websites. If for any reason you forget exactly what the procedures are and what you need, just go to those websites and it'll actually walk you through everything you want to know.
And hopefully you're doing it early
Yeah.
so that you have time in case, okay, but what happens if they do go early and they're rejected?
Yeah.
What can they do?
Okay, so if you're rejected, that's considered a voting rights abuse. So you can call the Secretary of State by calling 1-800-252-8683 and report anything that you feel might have been done that you feel is wrong.
It's super, don't wait.
Yeah,
you know?
don't wait.
Don't wait.
And you have rights too as a voter. So
do.
Your rights are you have the right to a written instructions for the ballot on how to cast a vote. Ask a polling official there for instructions on how to cast your vote. You can cast your vote in secret and free of intimidation. Receive up to 2 ballots if it's handwritten and you make a mistake. For those counties that don't necessarily use the electronic, you can bring an interpreter. Puedes traer a alguien que hable tu idioma para que te explique todas las instrucciones en tu idioma, en cualquier de los idiomas que mencionan en la página web de ellos. Help cast your vote if you can't write, see, or read the language in which this ballot is written. Cast a provisional ballot if your name doesn't appear on the list of voters. And if you don't possess one of the 7 acceptable forms, have those secondary IDs with you.
Okay,
there as well.
so I think they're gonna get ready in a few minutes
Yeah.
to go in and do this. And hey, if you guys have more questions, we'll have even more answers on the panel. But give us those links again, just so that people can
Sure, go
have
there.
them in their memory.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's my.lwv.org, rockthevote.org, votetexas.gov, and vote411.org. Y para los que hablan español también recuerden ese número de teléfono 1-888-VE y vota.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well,
I'm
let's
gonna
go
stick
ahead.
around.
Yeah.
You guys stick around?
Stick around.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Let's go
Let's hang
in.
out. Let's hang
Let's
out.
go in through this door right here. All right, guys.
You're outside drinking stuff. Hold on.
Yeah.
Ooh. All right.
Thank you all very much. I'm actually the chairman of the board here at the Talento Bilingue of Houston and have been involved in the board for over 3 years. I'm also on the board of the Houston Media Source. And thanks to being on a couple of boards, I brought this together. It's kind of a dream come true. And I'll tell you a little bit more. This is going to be a live TV show. So again, all I can ask you is watch your language and keep your phones on stun. And if you still carry a pager, then turn it off, please. Again, just to tell you about a little bit about TBH, if you've never been here before, it is they're considered one of the jewels of the East End. It's located at 333 South Jensen. Zip code is 77003. We're in the heart of Second Ward, which is many people Segundo Barrio. We're on the corner of Jensen and Navigation. We're right across the street from Our Lady of Guadalupe Church, which has been here over 112 years, I believe. Again, just want to tell you that this facility here has been here for over 40 years. It's the home that was founded by Richard Reyes, Pancho Claus, and my cousin Yolanda Black Novato. And so I'm very blessed just to be here and be involved in here. I just want to tell you great things are always happening here at TBH, Talento Bilingue de Houston. As you know, we have plays here. We have a 280-seater theater. We've had comedies been here. We've had Paul Rodriguez. We've had George Lopez. We've had Juan Villarreal. We've had a lot of successful. We had a CD release party for La Fiebre. We've had a lot of great artists come by here. We've had some book launches. We just had a book launch last week for Latino leaders with the collaboration of the University of Houston, Arte Público Press, and Nuestra Palabra, Mr. Tony Diaz, a good friend of ours. And we've had a lot of outdoor music festivals. We had an accordion festival. And we're proud to say that we have some of the top folklorico dancers in here. We just don't have enough room. We have like 5 groups that are here. And I can tell you these groups are nationally acclaimed groups. They've performed all over the world, and they've won some national awards. So we're very proud of what's going on here at TBH, and we always should try to make room for them. Also, we have a summer program for children, which if people don't know, if you your children will be involved in robotics, they'll be involved in learning acting and playing an instrument and singing and dancing and being in a play. So if you're looking for something artistic for your children in the summertime, this is the place to be. We also have our own art gallery, and we change out the art probably about every 6 weeks. And we just named the gallery the Brenda Aquino Art Gallery in name of our young volunteer who lost her life to flu over last year. And she did a great job of bringing new artists and young artists into our facility. So as you get a chance, come by and check out the art. The art is for sale. Many times we have photography. Coming up, we have a big Dia de los Muertos with all kinds of altars and paintings and pictures. So please come by and visit us. Sometimes we're live on TV. We've been on Fox on Channel 13. Channel 13 happened to cover us this year and did a Hispanic Heritage Month here at the TBH, so we're very proud of. We've also had an accordion fest, and also we're kicking off mariachi classes. So this is a great place to be, and great things are happening here. And like a good friend of mine, Patricio, was just saying, TBH has talent. So we have to coin that phrase. Right now, I want to introduce, tell you a little bit about Houston Media Source. They're the executive producers of this event. They have a lot of talented individuals that are working there. They're located in the community. They're also in the Second Ward community. They're located right on the corner of Roberts and Harrisburg, and they have a great facility there, and we're just talking a little bit about it. They are in the community to help the community. They can make dreams come true. If you want to have a TV show, you want to have a talk show like Jay Leno or any of the, back in the days it was Johnny Carson or some of the new guys like Jimmy Kimmel, you're welcome to come to HMS, Houston Media Source, and start one up. If you want to make a movie, if you want to have a documentary, you can sign up for classes at HMS, or if you just want to learn to be a photographer, you're more than welcome to come into HMS and learn what's going on there. They're one of the best kept secrets in Houston. Come visit our offices, our facility, our studios, sign up for a class, and check out the great programs. They're on 24 hours, and they show programs of all kinds of variety. So if you get a chance, check out HMS. Go to their website. It's hmstv.org, hmstv.org. And now I'm going to go ahead and open up to the panelists that are very special guests and people that I can say are very good friends and have been inspirations to me. The first person that I'm going to introduce you to is a soon-to-be attorney. She's a pre-law student. She's a campaign manager. She's a graduate of U of H, and she reminded me that it happens to be that all our panelists are graduates of University of Houston. She's very passionate. She's very organized, outspoken, and direct. She's a fundraiser. She's raised a lot of money for a lot of different organizations. She is a leader in our community, and I invited her because she is the voice we need to help get out the vote. Please give a round of applause to Ms. Patricia Limon Rodriguez. The next person I introduce you to is going to be another good friend of mine. She's a very, what can I say, she's an activist. She's been involved in the community for many years. She's a strong member of LULAC. She's a former city council member. She's an activist and a leader. She's been awarded many honors and many awards and has been a member of numerous boards. Next week, she'll be honored by the mayor's office, the mayor's Hispanic Heritage Lifetime Achievement Award, or probably one of the highest honors in the Houston. Please give it up for Ms. Attorney Gracie Sines. And the next person, young man, he has an engineering degree from the prestigious UC Berkeley. He is a member of numerous boards. He is also a graduate of the NHPO Leadership Institute, where I met him. He has fought against City Hall in getting district lines drawn fairly for better Hispanic representation at City Hall. He's helped in many campaigns and also advised in many campaigns. And I can tell you, he helped me in my campaign too when I asked him for a little help. He believes in fairness, justice, and the Tejano way. Please give it up for Dr. Ray Guerra. This next special person is presently, he's the Harris County Treasurer. He's a former city council member. He made the cover at Kiwanda magazine, just recently came out, just like the Rolling Stone for Tejanos. So he ran for mayor a couple of times and lost by a few votes. He is one of the top, or he is the top Hispanic vote attainer or vote getter in Harris County. A good all-around guy. Please give it up for Mr. Orlando Sanchez. And now for our moderator. He's a good friend. He's a teacher. He's an inspiration to me. He's the reason I'm doing this, because I sat in it was a session regarding leadership building, and he started talking about voter mobilization, the importance of it. I really didn't know what the term meant until I sat through the class, and he really, I said, that's what I want to do. I want to see about getting more voters out. So he's been an activist all his life. He's been an advisor for many public officials like Mickey Leland, Ben Reyes, many mayors and council members. You can always see him downtown at City Hall, or you can see him, in Austin if necessary. He's a professor, a teacher, a speaker, a motivator. He also has a book that everybody needs to get. The title of the book is The Heart of Houston, Lessons in Servant Leadership. And that's the class that he teaches with NHPO LI. And without further ado, he's just a founding member of the NHPO Leadership Institute. He's instilled the idea and the passion, as I mentioned earlier, in voter mobilization, and that's the reason why we're here. Dr. Larry Payne. And before I let Mr. Payne take over, I want to introduce a good friend of ours. He's a media partner, Gabriel Spotterstedt, the publisher and editor for Kiwanda magazine. Thank you for being here, Gabriel. Oh, yeah. And one more person who came to me and decided to help us out at the last minute in case we needed her help. He's a former employee at technical person at NASA Clear Lake, and he's also now the communications director. And please give him a round of applause for being here, as Mr. Doug Peterson. Thank you, Doug.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Larry Payne. I'm the host producer of Dialogue Houston on HCC TV, now in its 25th season. And I'm just happy to be able to moderate with you this evening. Let me just do a couple of quick opening things, and then we'll get right to the panel. First of all, not often you get to be with a group of your friends. And I can say that all four of these people on our panel tonight are friends. More importantly than being friends, there are individuals in the community who we've all developed relationships with, relationships built on mutual trust and respect. because nothing happens without trust. Relationships built on mutual trust and respect, because nothing happens without trust. I want to give a shout out to Houston Media Source before we start. A very great thanks again for Jesse for pulling this together, to TBH for hosting it, and Javier Perez and company. And I want to say that we have a unique opportunity this evening to discuss the issue of getting out the vote in all its aspects, geared to one thing and one thing only, to urging everyone to make sure they go out and vote, and just go ahead and vote on early voting starting on October 22nd and get it over with. Yes, the election is November 6th. There's no sense in waiting to do the right thing. You might as well go ahead and vote early. Let me see if I can make a couple of quick comments just to frame kind of what this discussion is all about this evening in kind of a larger context, if I may. Because I think setting the context for the text we're going to discuss and dialogue this evening is very important. Houston, Texas, the fourth largest city in America, the #1 diverse city in America, the #1 gated community in America, the #1 racially segregated, economically gated community in America. Yes, we are diverse, but we're not pluralistic. Yes, we are tolerant of each other, but we don't accept each other. Yes, we're trying to learn how to move from being an international city to a great cosmopolitan city like the rest of the world. So we have struggles, we have opportunities, we have challenges, we have all of the above. We are now, in fact, a majority-minority city. We are now a majority-minority city. We are a majority-minority city. We're also experiencing the second era of the resegregation of public schools. HISD is totally resegregated again. 214,000 kids, only 7.9% of those kids are Anglo, 7.9% of 214,000 children. The second era of the resegregation of public education. So I mentioned earlier that we are now a majority-minority city. We are now a majority-minority school district. However, there's a word that has to be put in front of the majority. They're the new unempowered majority. The new unempowered majority. Microsoft is looking recently to move part of its operation to another city. They were trying to get a short list of the 20 cities to consider, to pare that down to 10, from 10 to 5 to 5 to 3. They looked at Houston, Texas as being one of those top 20 cities to be on their short list. Houston did not make the cut. Think about that for a moment. Houston, Texas, the fourth largest international city in America, did not make the short list, did not make the cut, because Microsoft said this: you do not have the trained, skilled, educated workforce that we need. You do not have the trained, educated, skilled workforce that we need. I'm trying to give you reasons to understand why you have to go vote. I'm trying to give you reason to understand why your vote is so important. I'm trying to give you reason to understand that one vote does count and make a difference in the reality and the context of what Houston, Texas is. Not what we think it is, not what we like it, would like it to be, not what we like it to become, not what we like it to go back to, but the fact, the reality of what it really is. One more quick statistic. This comes from all of our friends on this panel, Dr. Stephen Kleinberg at Rice University, the Kinder Institute. Dr. Kleinberg says this: 70% of all Houstonians over the age of 60 years old are Anglo. 70% of all human beings over 60 years old are Anglo. 75% of everyone under 30, 75% of everyone under 30 years of age is Hispanic, Latino, African American, or Asian. Now get that picture in your mind for a moment, because this is the Houston we're talking about tonight. 70% of everyone over 60 is Anglo. 75% of everyone under 30 is Hispanic, Latino, African American, or Asian. That's the context in which this dialogue, this discussion, this wonderful conversation this evening about getting out the vote resides in. I think it's important to frame it that way, because the frame is very important to how we understand what is our challenge for this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to stop there. I'll come back throughout the evening and kind of interject some more points of reality about Houston, Texas. But I just want to start off by going down the line, and they seated themselves. They were self-selection. So we'll just start with whoever sat in the first seat, number one, and that would be our good friend Ray Guerra. And we'll just go down the line. And here's the question: why are you here tonight, and why do you see it so important, so critical in this election cycle to make sure that not only do we have a great voter turnout, that we have the best voter turnout that we've ever had in Houston and Harris County, Texas, because the stakes are so high. Ray.
So thank you, Dr. Payne. First I want to say it's a really cool honor to be here. It's a really cool honor to be introduced by Jumpin' Jess, who is an icon in the city of Houston. I remember being in high school and hearing him on the radio, and this guy was an absolute celebrity to me. When I first met him, the first thing I did was I called my mom and told him, I just met Jumpin' Jess. She was very excited. So not only did I get to get introduced by Jumpin' Jess, but the folks here are some of the greatest leaders currently in the city of Houston, and I think in the history of the city of Houston. So it's absolutely an honor to be up here. I think so. Why am I here? Why is it so important to be here? Why is it so important to vote now? I think Dr. Payne alluded to a lot of this. We are in the city of Houston. City of Houston is approaching 50% Latino. The city of Houston is the second largest Latino community in the country. In the state of Texas, where the 7 largest counties in the state of Texas, the largest population in those counties is Latino. Yet we have an upcoming legislative session in 2019 where we fully expect something on the order of 50 to 80 anti-Latino bills to be introduced on the very first day of the legislative session. People will be clamoring to be the very first, elected officials will be clamoring to be the very first person to introduce an anti-Latino bill on the very first day of session. So how can this happen? How can somebody have the audacity to do this with such a large population, such a large constituency that's Latino? I think that's why we're here. I think this is absolutely the most important time in the history of the United States for Latinos. If we don't get engaged now, when it's the most important time in our history, when will we get engaged? If somebody asked me this question the other day, or they painted it like this to me, if in 20, 30 years from now, and you're speaking to your grandchildren and they're looking back and they're seeing that the most powerful man in the world was making his personal mission to attack Latinos, Abuelito, what were you doing in that time? Abuelito, did you do anything? What was the culture? What was society? How were they responding? And my response were to be that I didn't vote. My response were to be that I didn't get engaged. I think that would be a significant regret. So why now? Because this is the most important time in our history. And I think given that we are such a large population in Houston, such an important state as Texas, I think it's an easy case to make that Latinos are ground zero. In Houston, Latinos are ground zero for what's going on in this country. So it is an easy case to make that now is the most important time.
Ray, would you take a moment and please expand and expound a little bit on the idea of an anti-Latino bill? I think I know what you're referring to, but I want to make sure our audience does, because this reminds me of 1968 all over again. I know very firsthand what an anti-colored Negro Black African American bill was back then and what that was meant by that. So tell me what we mean in 2018 about an anti-Latino bill.
I think one stark example exists for me. In December 2009, I had finished grad school. I came in California, came back to Houston 2010. Really didn't know what the difference between a Republican or a Democrat was. Really hadn't really been engaged. All I knew was engineering. But I knew my personal history, my culture, my family. And this bill in Arizona was introduced, SB 1070. That was terrible, and there were legislatures. It was very much in the news. Legislatures in Texas were considering copying that bill, and a bill went something like, if I'm riding in a car with a friend and I'm driving, and we get pulled over, the cop has the power to ask us for our citizenship, and if the passenger, my friend, gets asked for their citizenship and they're undocumented, if they're quote unquote illegal, then I would get a felony for being in the car and essentially having a friend that's undocumented. Aiding and abetting. I'm not a lawyer, but we have a lawyer here. So this is anti-Latino. This is scary. I think it's very scary. It's a terrible thought to think that for me to have to ask every one of my friends that has maybe darker skin or that has a Latino surname if they're undocumented, because I'm scared of getting a felony if I just get in the car with you or if we're friends.
Thank you. Attorney Gracie Steins has been with us for every battle and fight that we've had in the city of Houston over more years than we care to any of us to talk about. Before she was on city council, definitely during her time on city council. And since then, Gracie, you've seen it. You've watched us kind of grow and morph into what we are today as Houstonians, with the battles, with the challenges, with the opportunities, with the fights, with the debates, and we still are not where we need to be. In fact, some will say that we have taken steps backwards rather than forward.
And I believe that's the reason why this is probably one of the most important times in our history, is because we are seeing things taking several steps back. So I'm a Houstonian. I'm proud, born and raised here, educated here, my family, my grandkids. We're all here. We're not going anywhere that I know of. But it's important for you to know that back in and it's important for you to know our history. In 1926, my father was born in Houston. In 1933, there was a huge removal of Mexicanos throughout the southwest of the United States. They say that close to 1 million were removed. These were laborers, these were families. They had established themselves in California, New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, and it's my understanding even Oklahoma and Louisiana. There was no due process, basically, at that time, no hearings. They just rounded them up, put them in railroad cars, and sent them to Mexico. And the reason was because they were taking jobs, they were criminals, they were people that were not wanted. And the rhetoric that surrounded that type of move to facilitate the removal is something very similar that is going on now. My father was born here in Houston, and yet he and his family were removed. He did not have an opportunity to decide. He, of course, was a child, and they say that many of the ones removed were U.S. citizen-born children. He came back as an adult, and he was able to prove his U.S. citizen birth by virtue of the fact that he was actually baptized at Our Lady of Guadalupe right here in this corner. He actually was born on Clinton and Jensen, right down the street. He's a very proud man. He's 92 years old. I grew up at a time in 5th Ward, family of 9, and there was a lot of discrimination, a lot of, and you know, I could go and give you examples of how we were treated, the names we were called, the opportunities that were taken away from us, the inability to get an education, the inability to find proper housing, employment, all of these things that were affecting us. And I saw it with my own eyes. So as I was growing up in these scenarios, I did not like my neighborhood. I did not like the fact that I didn't have sidewalks. I didn't like the fact that our schools did not have books. I did not like the fact that our schools did not have the equipment for sports or the arts or the music. And when I went across town and saw the new schools and saw how much equipment they had and saw the beautiful, environment they were learning, I asked myself, why? What's going on? And I learned at that time how taxes were being used, how in our districts, certain companies were not being taxed. And therefore, our schools did not have the proper tax base. Yet their schools, the values of their homes were up. So that to me was the very basic foundation upon which we could deal with having a good life. And that was not allowed to be happening in our communities. Instead, we were faced with challenges, criminal justice system. I became a prosecutor for 4.5 years, and I saw, and I was very frustrated in what I saw. I was putting away nothing but minority men. It was very double standard. In many ways, I saw things that certain classes were doing and others were not being able to do and get away with it. Again, discrimination, the fire department, the police department, the fact that you had the inability of minorities to be in these positions, and who was holding these positions, these tables of power. We were not included. So therefore, our issues, our problems were never addressed. And again, that's why I ran for city council at a time when I was being told that a Latina or a Latino could not be voted in at large at that time. And we will be coming back, I'm sure, to talk about the importance of voting. But at that time, I remember that I was stepping forward, not only for myself, but for many in our community, to let them know that an education and the ability to voice the concerns of what was going on in many communities that had not been addressed needed to be stated, and they needed to be reckoned with. And so unless we get individuals in office that see this happening and can make those changes, then shame on us.
Thank you. Patricia, you've seen it now in election cycles and campaign cycles of quite a few candidates that you've worked for. You've also seen how the education system is taking steps backwards in this community because you're involved in all those issues. What's your perspective on all of this evening?
So to be clear, I've actually only worked on one campaign, which would be my husband's. And just to preface, like Dr. Guerra said, I'm honored to be on this panel with two pillars of the Houston political spectrum. To be here with Orlando Sanchez and Gracie Sines is an absolute honor, and with Dr. Guerra himself making his own pathway into the history of Houston. So, you know, everybody's talking about how Latinos are not quite 50%, but we are getting to that point where we're 50% of Harris County. And it's, to me, shameful to see that in our elected officials, our representation isn't the same as in other communities. For example, I like to say this number, but I hate having to say it, that in Harris County, we're over 45% of the population, almost 50%, but the 120 judges for which we are able to elect, we only have 7 right now that are Latinos. There are, and this is 84 countywide, 18 Court of Appeals, the 1st and 14th, the 9 Court of Criminal Appeals, and the 9 Supreme Court justices. Only 7 are Latinos, and that is 5 Republicans and 2 Democrats. And so for me, I just think that growing up, I didn't see very many people that look like me in the judiciary. And I think it's important that we change the political landscape, because as our numbers grow, the people that are growing up to be in leadership positions need to see themselves in the leaders. And so for me, that's what's extremely important, is that we get people out to vote, we get people to run for these positions, and qualified people and experienced people to run for these positions, so that they have role models. I'm sitting next to someone who I consider my role model, and I want that for people who are going to be 18 when the population of Harris County reaches more than 50% Latino. I think it's very important.
To that point, Orlando, you sit in probably the most unique position in this county, in Harris County, and you also see the reality of Houston and the reality of Harris County, which are sometimes a mismatch. But you also have friends and deep friends and relationships on both sides of the aisle. You care deeply about people and the issues and about human beings in general. But the wave that's about to come with the Latino vote, once it recognizes its rightful place and takes its rightful role in numbers and not only registering but voting, and also other waves that are predicted to come to Harris County in the years to come, puts you in a very unique position to see the change, to experience the change, to have led some of the change and probably be leading other parts of it but it has to be, for you personally, a very interesting place to be right now.
Well, Larry, it's fascinating. I will tell you, I feel like a real senior citizen here. I've been in politics. I've been in public life in Houston for 25 years. My first bid for public office was 1992. And I pinch myself every day when I wake up as an immigrant to this country that I'm still serving over 7 million people in this region elected. And, you know, it's hard to believe. I've been in public office as an elected official for more than 18 years. I did, as everybody knows, I'm a Republican. I didn't get there with just Republican votes, as you mentioned, Larry.
Right.
I got there with a lot of votes from a lot of friends in many diverse communities of Houston. And so the question you asked initially was, why am I here? I'm here because I think democracy, I think representative government, I think our Constitution, I think our rights to participate in the political process are extremely important and unique in the world. You know that, Larry, because I've heard you say it before many times. And I value that. I came from a communist country where we didn't have those opportunities. And so I've, you know, I remember one of the great benefits of serving in Houston City Council was obviously sitting next to Gracie Sines for 4 years as my colleague. And so I've seen a lot of changes. Not always positive. And because we're at Talento Bilingue de Houston and focusing on the Hispanic community, and I always, you know, when people ask me, Larry, about the Hispanic community and this, I'll always tell people I'm an American. I'm a naturalized citizen. I'm proud of this country. I'm proud to be a U.S. citizen. And but since we're talking about the Latino community, and as you point out, Larry, you like statistics. So let me give you a couple of statistics. Houston is home to the largest Mexican national community in the second largest Mexican national community in the United States, next to Los Angeles. Harris County is the third largest Hispanic population in the United States. Now, people always say, well, what's the difference? Well, while Cubans and Puerto Ricans and Colombians were all Hispanic, there's different nationalities. So we're the second largest Mexican population in the United States and the third largest Hispanic population. And so unfortunately, that community, as has been said here, has a history of low voter turnout. And I'm here to find out why and try to encourage our community, all of Houston, to vote, but particularly those of Hispanic descent. Now, I'll give you some more statistics. I was elected in 1995. In that era, Houston City Council, by charter, had 14 city council members and 1 mayor. That was 15 of us. At that time, and I had to write it down because as you get old, you get feeble, we had John Castillo, we had Orlando Sanchez, we had Gracie Sines, we had, elected shortly thereafter, Gabriel Vasquez, we had Felix Fraga, and we had a city controller by the name of Sylvia Garcia. Now, by my count, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the 1990s Latinos. Fast forward to 2018. How many Latinos are on the Houston City Council?
1.
That's the correct answer. 1, and he comes from a district elected by maybe 5, 6, 7,000 voters. When you expand the scope and look at Harris County, how many are on the Harris County Commissioner's Court?
0.
0. So the question is, you know, I'm not here to lay blame. You know, it's open to anybody. I'm here to encourage the community to do what we're gathered here tonight to do, is that encourage people to participate. We can't force you to participate, but it's your privilege and it's your right to vote. Participate. And I think Jesse was talking about this earlier. Perhaps the Latino community needs to make voting a cultural thing. Bring your kids, bring your grandchildren to the polls. You know, I used to bring my daughter to vote. She couldn't vote, but she watched me vote, and now she doesn't miss an election. So, you know, we're in a perfect setting. This is a nonprofit organization for the purpose of educating our community. But voting is important, Larry. You know that. As a man who's seen the civil rights struggles, I came to Houston in 1962, right in the heart of the civil rights struggle. I've seen communities move forward, fight for their freedoms, and today and tonight we're fighting for people to go out and participate in the democratic process and vote. And so that's my appeal tonight, and that's why I'm here.
So as we look at what has happened or not happened in Houston when it comes to getting out to vote and voter turnout, I can't help but go back to the days when Leonel Castillo was controller, and the voter turnout campaign that we did during his era was probably still one of the best I think the city has ever had, because there was a lot of pride with him being the city controller. I was blessed and fortunate at one time to sit at the Horseshoe with the council members as Mayor Kathy Whitmire, City Council Agenda Director, so I know what the dynamics are of that Horseshoe. But I also know this, that Mayor Turner is my 8th mayor that I've worked with or for over these however many years. I want to go back to the key point, one of the key points Orlando raised. We have a problem with democracy. There are 5 tenets of what it means to be a citizen living in a democratic society, and then I want our panelists to address this point. We love to talk about 2 of those 5 tenets. What are my individual rights and privileges that go with being a citizen in a democracy? What are my individual rights and privileges that go with being a citizen living in a democratic society? We love that conversation. We'll have that conversation all day. Why? Because who's that about? It's all about me, right? I say it's about you, but it's all about me. That's the great I and me discussion. What about the other 3 of the 5 tenets, which are our common duties, obligations, and responsibilities to whom? The other. Define the other increasingly in our society, someone different than myself, someone that does not look like me. However, in bold, embodied in the discussion of our common duties, obligations, responsibilities to each other as human beings is the we and us. It's about we and us. How do we get to we? How do we get to us? We in the United States, in Texas, and in Houston and Harris County have been trying to figure out what it means to get to we all these years. And so the challenge, I think, for this election cycle, for getting out to vote, for the changing demographics of this community, if Kleinberg is right, Dr. Stephen Kleinberg is right, demography is destiny. Demography is destiny. So when we look at where we're headed in this very divided country, state, maybe in some ways even beyond that, and the lack of civility that is going on, it seems to me, and from the comments every one of our panel members have said, that alone should be enough to get people out to vote. That alone should get them enraged, get them emboldened, get them off their duffs to go and come out and vote. They should be like that great scene from the movie Network. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. Whatever side you're on, whatever motivates you, whatever gets you off your duff to go vote. But it's not happening. There's no fierce urgency of now. There's no outrage. There's no... And so back to the panel, in each one of your great comments you made, what is it going to take to motivate human beings to come out and understand the common goods that's at stake, the social contract with each other is at stake, that even trying to define democracy is at stake as a citizen? That's where we are. It is very clear to me as a child of the 60s, as Orlando mentioned, I feel like I'm reliving 1968 all over again. This might as well be 1968 all over again. Ray.
So I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers, but I do know that there's a couple of reasons why Latinos aren't coming out to vote, and I think one is very easy. I think we're a lot of times we're in our family, we're in survival mode, working 2 or 3 jobs, taking care of the kids, and it's a lower priority. It's lower on the priority list to get out. But I don't think that's all the reasons why. I think part of the reason it has to do with targeting. If you've ever been in part of a campaign, a traditional way to run a campaign is, okay, I'm going to run for X position. I'm going to run for city council. How am I going to get elected? why I need maybe 10,000 votes to win or whatever that number is. And I'll make a list of all the people that have ever voted, and then I make a list of all the people that are what are called high propensity voters. And those high propensity voters, those are the ones that are targeted over and over and over again. If you voted consistently in the last 2, 3, or 4 elections, you're going to get your door knocked on, you're going to get a phone call, you're going to get a mailer, you're going to get a couple of mailers, maybe you're going to get your door knocked on several times. What that means is that if you haven't voted before, you're not going to get targeted. So it's this vicious cycle, right? If they only target voters, they don't target non-voters, so non-voters never get targeted, so they never vote. What's been encouraging is that a group of us back in 2011, a group of us, we decided that we wanted to break this vicious cycle, and we decided that, you know what, we're going to raise some money, and we're going to strictly focus on trying to turn out the Latino community. And so we picked a place where it's one of the lowest voting turnouts in the city of Houston. It's Balin Park, which is in southwest Houston. And we said, okay, this is one of the lowest voting turnout precincts. And what we did was essentially we just decided to target the Latino community surrounding Balin Park in what we call a culturally sensitive way. We knocked on doors. And we said, we spoke about the issues that were important to Latinos. We offered, but not only did we knock on doors, and talk about the issues that were important to Latinos, but we also kind of turned it into a cultural celebration. We said, here are the issues, here's why we're asking you to vote, but we said, now we're asking you to go to Balin Park. We're going to have a celebration there. We had a DJ, we had mariachi, we had free tacos, we set up these voting machines so they can practice voting before they go in. We didn't ask them to vote for any specific candidate. We gave them voters guides from the League of Women Voters, which are nonprofit voters guides, to just give them information on each candidate. And what I can tell you is that when we blocked walk that morning, Saturday morning of early voting, we blocked walk with mariachi. And when we block walk with mariachi, most of the time, if you block walk, you knock on a door, it's very hard to get somebody to answer. Who's this stranger knocking on my door? But when you block walk with mariachi, you don't even have to knock on the door. People come out and they're, what's going on? Where's the party? Here's a flyer. Let's go get some free tacos. We just want to encourage you to vote. What I'll tell you is we turned Balin Park into from one of the lowest voting precincts in the city and the county to the second highest voting precinct that day. We more than tripled the vote compared to previous years. And we did it in a very cheap way. A lot of times, these candidates will spend $30, $40, $50 per vote when they're trying to get elected. And I think we just did the back envelope calculation, and we must have spent $10 per vote with tacos and mariachi when you average it all out. So it turns out that if you target Latinos and you target them in a culturally sensitive way, not only will they come out, but they will come out in significant percentages.
So Gracie, the historical context, Orlando mentioned as you lived, both of you, look at all the Hispanics we had on city council. Look at all the elected officials we had who were Hispanic at one time, going way back to an era where now there's only one seated person. One has to ask, what happened and what changed? Because something had to significantly change in the DNA of the human being, in the veracity of people seizing the issues and coming out to vote with passion and caring about campaigns. It wasn't about the candidate, it was about the issues that they represented to help save their own communities. So what happened?
Can we talk?
Yes.
I think the FBI sting happened. And it was a time that it discouraged many people to get on the ballot afterwards. There were a few, but not the way we were really moving forward in the 90s.
Yeah, we were. I can say we because I was right part of it.
And there were many people that were contemplating running for office. And after that FBI sting, I think people they got scared and they stepped back and they did not want to run for office anymore. And I think when you don't have people that look like you on the ballot, people are just, dissuaded from coming out to vote. They do not think that other other individuals can represent them, and I have to explain to them that whoever is in that office, if you're a U.S. citizen, you have a right to be served. Of course, you have no right to complain, I think, if you haven't voted, right? Because by not voting, you have given an answer as to what you want. And so, I feel that for a while there, it was a matter of what happened to us as a community, where the FBI came in and, they targeted our minority council members. And it was a very difficult time for many of us. So, but in that respect, I also think, we cannot give up. We do not throw in the towel. And even though I wasn't in public office, I really feel that there are other ways to be able to serve the community. There are other tables of power that are very important to communities. And as we are developing the skill sets and the experience, I encourage people to serve on boards and commissions and get that type of leadership skill set so that they can eventually, hopefully, run for office and be able to serve well.
Let's talk about those skill sets with Patricia and the young Latino and Hispanic leaders and the homing of those skill sets to be able to have the tenets they need to be able to organize, to be able to, because really it's about organizing. It's community organizing 101. It's the old stuff of block walking. It's all the stuff we know how to do. And it's just a matter of getting people out there volunteering, committed, and being held accountable to their commitments to showing up. We always say there's no magic to any of this stuff. It's show up, stand up, speak up, and follow up. Show up, stand up, speak up, and follow up. It's always been the same. It's just a matter of getting people committed to that and then holding them accountable to that commitment to do their part.
Yes, well, I think with this election cycle, we do have more. In Harris County, I believe there's 25 Latinos that are running for positions. And I'm going to say that from the Democratic side. And on the Republican side, there is more. I don't have that exact number because I've been focused a little bit more on the Democratic side. So there are more running this year, and I think it's the national political landscape being one of the big reasons that they are. And so what they can do, for example, here in Talento Bilingue, the Houston, there's the program NHPO's Leadership Institute. So I think people in the community have recognized that we need to help our younger generation get those skill sets. And so programs like that are very invaluable to our community because there is a place where they can go and do it. And so that those programs are happening now. We're now, in the 16th, 17th graduation class for Leadership Institute. I think that's very encouraging, and that more programs are. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce also has their Emerging Leaders program. And so there being a place where our young Latinos can go and learn these skill sets is really important. And I think with that, the time will tell, and we will have more people coming back. And I do think what Gracie said is a very good point, because there was something that happened. It obviously, with the numbers that Orlando just told us right now, we only have one. And it's a matter of time of building that back up. Right. I know on the Republican side, I believe there's 10 judicial candidates running on the Republican side, might be 9. On the Democratic side, there's 10. So we have more people this year that are looking to do it, that are putting themselves out there. And so it's now our responsibility as a community to make sure that our younger generation knows what to do, wants to go out. From being out in the field, I'm a precinct chair in Harris County, and so part of my responsibility is calling on the voters in my precinct. When I started off, I had 851 out of 3,449 voters. 851 that had never voted, and the large percentage of that number was Latinos. So to what?
Never voted.
Oh, excuse me?
Never voted.
That never voted, at least in the time frame, because in Voter Activation Network, I think it goes back to 2004. So as Dr. Guerra said, is that they weren't getting, no one was reaching out to them because they weren't the high propensity voters. So I kind of changed my strategy. Instead of doing what other people were doing, was to call those 851 people and to touch them so that they knew somebody cared, that somebody was there for them to, if they had questions. Because what I find is a lot of voters that have never gone out to vote, it's that they're intimidated because they don't know the process. Someone in their family, it wasn't a cultural thing, so they weren't going to vote. They might be the first person in their family to be able to vote. So sending videos to them, calling them and just saying, if you have a question, don't be embarrassed. I won't judge you. Just ask me what to do. I think it's going to change a lot more this year, and in 2019 and 2020, we'll see significant differences.
Before I turn to Orlando, I want to ask the audience to be thinking about your questions, and there's a microphone over here to my right, your left, to please come to the microphone and ask your question of the panelists. So I'm giving you opportunity to think about and formulate your questions before I turn to Orlando again. Orlando, as one who understands we and us, as we were talking earlier about democracy, one of the phrases you hear around Houston and Harris County when you talk to people about engaging in the education system, public urban education system, or helping out these children, one of the disturbing phrases you hear many times are, "Those are not my children." And what's so interesting about that statement, I've come to dig a little deeper, it's not mean-spirited, it's not ugly, it's not necessarily negative, prejudice, or discriminatory, it's not even racist. There's just a disconnect, a total disconnect between the people who are asking to vote, to tax themselves maybe for these children, or to get engaged in the future of Houston and Harris County with the new unempowered majority. They don't see their role or responsibility as being anything to do with those children. Those are not my children. Obviously, we have not given them a good reason to be connected, to care, to understand the common good, to understand the social contract, to understand we and us, to understand these are the kids going to be being taken care of you in your old age. These are kids who are inventing new drugs and serums to prolong your life. These are the kids that there's a total disconnect. And so when I give the retort to these individuals, what I just said about why these kids are important to your future life and your children and grandchildren and great-grand, I get back the same retort. But Larry, you don't understand. Those are not my children.
So one of the interesting things that I've been thinking about is, I was telling someone today that September 11th, 2001, I remember exactly where I was. I was in a mayoral race against former Mayor Lee Brown, for whom I have a lot of respect and admiration. But I remember the exact point where I was, and I was thinking about the responsibility we have to this nation. And shortly after 9/11, what happened? Could you find in a retail store a flag of the United States? You couldn't. Why? They were sold out. What was everybody doing with those flags? Hanging them off the windows of their car. For that 1 week, for that month, Larry, we were one. We were we. We were U.S. citizens who were indignant about what had happened to us collectively. We didn't know those people in those towers in New York. We didn't know those passengers in Shanksfield, Pennsylvania. We didn't know the men and women who were serving in the armed forces at the Pentagon. But that one day, we were all Americans. We were Americans for 30 days afterwards. Couldn't find a flag. And so I'm wondering if that sense of we and us that you talk about has been disintegrated, degraded, and downplayed by too often the rhetoric of being Latinos or African Americans or Asians or, I have never looked at us. I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm Hispanic. I'm cognizant of the fact that I'm from Cuba. I'm cognizant of the fact that we are diverse even among Hispanics at this table of different nationalities. But when I look at this audience, and when I look at my colleagues, and when I look at you, Larry, I see nothing but Americans. And until we start referring to each other as citizens of a common land with a common interest, with common guaranteed constitutional rights and a Bill of Rights, we're going to continue to be disparaged, separated, and not looking at we and us, but them and them. You know, where's my piece of the pie? Well, that's not American. You know, I think that the other day I was having a conversation with somebody, and, you know, we're so focused on minorities and this and that and the other. I look at the armed forces. I served in the U.S. military as our military, the American military, the most powerful military that institutes peace around the world. We've never taken a piece of real estate. In all the wars, Larry, we've never aggregated to ourselves a piece of real estate. We go in, we settle our dispute, and we get out. We rebuilt Japan after the Second World War. We've rebuilt Europe after the Second World War. We're trying to rebuild democratic institutions in the Middle East. But as I look at, I'm cognizant of this, you know, divisiveness in our country. And you say some people, they're not our children. But I remind a lot of my friends in the Republican Party, because I'm a Republican, and we're not a perfect party. I'm not claiming that we are. But I remind my friends, have you looked at the ethnicity of the U.S. military? Have you guys looked at the ethnicity of the U.S. military? Over half of the U.S. military is minorities, what you guys call minorities, what we call ourselves minorities. And so that's amazing to me. And so we need to get away from being, you know, these little islands. We're all Americans. And that will go a long way, Larry, to making sure that those children that we have a responsibility to educate are our kids. That's our future. And until we get there, we're going to continue on the path we're on.
Thank you, sir. That was good. Okay, questions from the audience? Anyone? There's a microphone right there. If you have it, please go to the mic. And please announce yourself and then ask your question. And if you want to direct it to any one particular panelist, please do so.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Doug Peterson. I just wanted to kind of ask a question about how, when it comes down to it, everybody kind of knows that the people that are older, say 50, 60 years old, all go out and vote. Well, not everyone, but huge percentages of people. And myself, I got involved in politics going back a long time ago due to the Vietnam War, and there was quite a youth movement at that point. And I just wonder, how can we help young people get interested, get touched by it, realize that they can be heard, just even be heard, let alone to vote, to help them know that there are issues out here that really hit home. And obviously in this day and age, in this particular year, you would think that young Latino people would be out in masses. How is it? How can we get their attention and accelerate their maturity in some way to think about these things and to question them and to ask questions and get involved and ultimately to vote at a younger age than we would expect?
Right.
So I just like to point out, I was on the League of Women Voters Board for a long time, and so we looked at a lot of these statistics, and I don't have them exactly memorized, but I do know that the worst voters in the United States are, the worst voting state in the United States is the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. The worst voting demographic in the state of Texas, which is the worst voting state, are Latinos, but the worst voting sort of sub-demographic of the Latino community are the youth. So what's the worst voting bloc in the entire United States of America?
Yeah.
It's the young Latino in Texas. So this is a sort of a sad fact, but I think that a couple of ways to try to increase the likelihood of voting in the youth in the Texas or anywhere really is just like we proved that we can turn out Latinos by targeting them in a culturally sensitive way, by targeting them around issues that are important to them. I think you do that with the youth. You target them in a way that appeals to them, using folks that are icons to the youth. Obviously, social media is a thing with the youth, so utilizing social media. But I think, again, I think the point has got to be to target them with intent and with purpose in what I'm going to call a culturally sensitive way.
I believe I had wanted to comment as well. I know that we used to have civic classes, Larry. Remember those days in high school?
They need to come back again.
And I remember there was a teacher by the name of Alvera who was very involved with teaching us about our responsibility of being U.S. citizens and having to go and help and vote. So even though I was 17 years old, he was already telling us we should go and participate by helping others that were running for office. And so he was very encouraging, very enlightening. He showed us ways of why it was important for us to vote, and that was, see your school, see their school. You have a right to speak up. So that was one of the things that I feel, again, who is, in terms of our educational courses that are being offered and why we do not have that being taught in our high schools. The other thing is, registering our students at the age of 18. I know that HISD, and I believe there is now a state law that requires principals to allow and to register 18-year-olds in high schools. And so hopefully it's not just a matter of registering them, but also hopefully encouraging them as well. And you're right, I think social media can go a long way to signal and to communicate with our younger population. And I believe social media has been used by, of course, the past Obama administration that really made it very successful. I believe now with almost every child, I know that even my grandkids, as young as they are, all have phones. And I believe that is one of the areas that we really need to start being able to utilize better for our younger Latino.
Anyone else before we go to the next question?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Alex Villegas. I'm an engineer by background, raised similar to you. And for the sake of full disclosure, I'm actually a transplant. I came to Houston 21 years ago, and originally from California, studied out there. But I do notice a contrast. Now, I met my wife here, got married here, I'm raising my family here, so I think I'm Texan by marriage at this point,
After 5 years, you're a Texan and a Houstonian.
All right.
But yeah, I'm committed. I'm committed to my community. I volunteer. I volunteered in Battleground, Texas a couple years ago. Volunteered in the, Obama campaign back in 2008. We were busy raising kids in 2012, so we took some time off, let others kind of carry the weight. Ray, it sounds like you were there doing that work. But one thing, I'm back at it again, and one of the challenges that I've been seeing, because it's not so much at a party level, but I'm volunteering in the Beto campaign, and I work with other folks as well. One of the things that I've been seeing, because I am bilingual, I mean, my family's from Mexico, and I grew up in Southern California, so, we were involved very much back in the 80s when the De Rodino Act, the 1986 Act, quote unquote amnesty, and in my church, helping people read the documents and understand them and come out of the quote unquote the shadows, right? That era. Well, here we are, 30 plus years later. And the challenges that I see now, going out and talking to people, especially in the Latino community, and I saw it 2 years ago and I'm seeing it now, is it feels like a lot of us are kind of working on our own. It doesn't feel like there is and maybe it's my own ignorance, that there's a sustained strategy. And whatever party, to be fair, Orlando, I can't speak to what's happening on the GOP side. It's just what I see on the Democratic Party side, which is, it just feels like it's fragmented. A lot of energy, a lot of folks jumping in, getting involved, communicating, like Gracie said, through social media. We're connecting. But, it's almost like a motley crew of individuals coming together. I host block walking in my neighborhood. I got violinists, cellists, retired pharmacists, widows. I got a whole collection of people that want to be involved. At the same time, I want to be more involved in the Latino community. We did block walking in Denver Harbor. And I'll be honest with you, it was wonderful. It was 200 volunteers came out. It was an official Beto event. But I would say less than maybe 20 were Latino. And of those, I can't really guess who was bilingual. I know I was, but you're block walking in Denver Harbor, right? So we had all kinds of great, wonderful, energized moms, families that probably for the first time in their lives walked those neighborhoods. It's a neighborhood like I grew up in. So, I know these communities. Granted, here we don't have sidewalks, but that's fine. There was, some of the folks I think struggled in the communication. And it seems like we're struggling in getting and penetrating into the Latino community, which at the end of the day, it's stratified itself, right? Not just by nationality, but I would say by income, degree of education, by language, right? And I think there's no one formula. Ray, actually, I learned something in terms of what you shared back in 2011 about being culturally sensitive. My question kind of goes to that. Is there a sustained effort, and when I say effort, resources, money, what have you, that is available, from candidates, from parties, to do more outreach? And maybe it's my own ignorance, but if you could just share that with us.
Resources, money, time, talent, treasure.
I'll say a couple of things to that. One is, you alluded to the fact that you're block walking in Denver Harbor, if I understood you correctly, but there's not that many volunteers that are Latino that are block walking with you.
A lot of great volunteers, but energized.
Yeah.
There was,
And I think as somebody who's been fortunate to have spent some time recruiting folks to run for office, not just Latino, but a whole lot of Latinos, we found some really great Latino leaders that are just outstanding on paper, outstanding candidates to run for office. But when we ask them to run for office, they say, well, why? It's never been an option for them to run for office. And why hasn't it never been an option for them to run for office? My mom's family were migrant farm workers from Mexico. My dad's from Rio Grande City, which is by most socioeconomic indicators one of the poorest parts of the country. They didn't go to college. They barely graduated high school. They were the first, essentially, to graduate high school in their family. They didn't know what an engineer was. They couldn't guide me to apply to college, so engineering wasn't an option for me until I randomly met somebody, and I very, very randomly met somebody who was an engineer. He happened to be Latino, who encouraged me to be an engineer. And so I met somebody that kind of looked like me, that told me what an engineer was, and all of a sudden it became an option. So if we only have one council member out of 16 that's a Latino, if we have 0 county commissioners, if we have never had a Latino congressperson in the second largest Latino community in the country, running for office is just not an option because you've never been exposed to it, right? And nobody's knocking on your door to ask you to run for office or why to vote for them. So why is it an option for them? So it's not. And so I think that's part of the problem. It's just sort of this vicious cycle. To answer your question in terms of, I wouldn't say that there's a unified effort to try to get more folks engaged and to get more Latinos turned out. There's some really cool organizations. I am very involved with the Democratic Party, but I will say that the Republican Party does have what I will call a playbook, and a very, very purposeful in recruiting Latinos to run for office and to try to, arguably, they focus more in low propensity neighborhoods than the Democratic Party does. But a unified effort, no. If we can speak to a couple of really cool Latino organizations that are doing some really cool work. There's a couple of Latino Texas PAC, which is a nonpartisan PAC that's doing some really cool work. New National Hispanic Professional Organization Leadership Institute doing some really cool work. So there are some orgs out there.
Well, we're going to have to move on. We'll have to take that up after we get off the air. But we have one more question. I'm going to try to get in real quick with some quick answers to his response to his question. Then I want to give each one of you a quick second or two to make your closing comment about why it's so important to get out the vote. Yes, sir, quickly.
Thank you. Just want to commend Mr. Sanchez for his comments. I totally agree with what he's saying. My whole point, what I see is, or what I hear is a lot of talk about, this group or that group, whether it's Hispanic or whether it's black or whether you're Democrat, whether you're Republican. That divisiveness is really goes to the fabric of our really American values. I see myself, my name is Pete Sanchez, by the way, and I'm an immigrant. I immigrated to the U.S. legally in 1958, and my parents are both legal immigrants as well. All of us now naturalized citizens. And we grew up very poor, grew up Democrat, in the Rio Grande Valley. But as I went to school and I've learned to educate myself, I decided that I wasn't Democrat and I'm not Republican. I consider myself an independent thinker. I've learned critical thinking skills. So I decide between, what is right for me as a person and, of course, the rest of the U.S. So I vote based on the merits of the candidates. My question is, how do we, when we go out and get out the vote, and I totally applaud that. I think it's great. Everybody has a duty and responsibility to vote. How do we educate them on how to think critically about what they think is best for their vote, whether it's this way or that way? Is it just one way? Or how do we educate them to let them think critically on their own?
Okay. I would ask the panelists to wrap your response to his question and your closing comments in the same quick. We got about 2 minutes left. So everybody just quickly.
Well, Larry, let me just say, politicians and politics is no different than the marketplace of ideas. When you propose ideas and get the public excited, everybody will turn out and vote. Most people vote their pocketbooks, their family, their safety. So, we're no different than do you remember when Coca-Cola changed their formula and came out with a new Coke and it plummeted? Obviously, the market responded. We're not buying it. So maybe we ought to look at ourselves and posit ideas that are favorable to the community and gets them energized and gets them excited.
Okay, quickly, to tell me we have only a few seconds left, so real quick.
So, as a Latina, Mexicana, Tejana, Chicana, what I would say is we need to, number one, consider becoming a precinct chair. On both sides of the party, we only have about half of those filled. And so if we can get people working at the grassroots level to get people to come out to vote, to talk to people at that grassroots level, I think we will have more people interested in voting. And get involved with someone's campaign. I know that it's a lot of work to give money and to do things, but get involved with someone's campaign, and so that you're learning, at least from one person's perspective, what it takes to run for office, to engage voters. Because it's too much, I think, if you're looking at it from a Harris County perspective. But I would say invest that time in one person and help them. And I think by doing that, it will translate into the umbrella of the candidates.
Great
So every time I'm about to go into an election cycle and get ready to vote, I use the League of Women Voters guide to help me see who the candidates are that are running for office, educate myself in connection with what they stand for, what their ideas are, and it really helps me once I go into the ballot box and vote. And I have found that then all my family call me and say, Tia or Mom, who are we voting for? And I realize that I have become the one to educate those around me. So I have found that the circles that you help to educate, to reach out, and then I tell them, look, this is where you find information. This is where you go, and it builds. I have told my children and their friends, and the way my own campaign went, I did not have very much, many resources, but I told them, if you could get 5 votes, and those people can each give me 5 votes, and those people can give me 5 votes, it'll grow exponentially. The other thing is to understand we need resources, we need money, and if a person gives $5, I know that they will come out and vote for that person because now they have committed. So I try to, as much as possible, get them to commit at least $5 for candidates so that they will be responsible to come out and vote for them.
Your best in 20 seconds.
Google League of Women Voters Houston Voters Guide. Get informed, and please get informed and vote. This is the most important time in our history.
October the 22nd.
Yes.
Early voting begins October 22nd. Let's give our panel a big hand. Thanks again to Houston Media Source. Thanks again to Jesse Rodriguez and TVH for hosting up. This is a quick closing comment. In 2036, Houston, Texas will celebrate its bicentennial. Will be 200 years old. 18 years from now, the child being born this year is the bicentennial child. Graduating 18 years from high school, 2036. The question we have to ask ourselves, everybody watching this show, and particularly if you're Hispanic Latino, Mayor Turner is the 62nd mayor of this city. The 64th mayor into the 2nd year of her first term, the Hispanic woman mayor, on August 28th or 29th in Discovery Green, gets to celebrate Houston's 200th anniversary. What do you want her to be saying? What is her speech? Let's start writing it now. It starts with you voting in this election cycle. Go vote. Please go vote. Early voting stops October 22nd. We got to go. Thank you all.
Great job, everybody.
That time went by quick.
Yeah. Can we get a picture together? Everyone wants to take a picture? All the panelists and Larry?
Yep.
I kind of was astounded by the whole thing. Yeah.
Bye, Patty.
Can you get in front of the table?
We have, no, we only have 7. But there's not 25 on yours.
There's 25. Yes. From Congress down to.
Oh,
just
yeah,
City
no,
Base.
I thought you were talking.
That's exactly what happened.
No, but 25.
Here we go. All right, come on. We get the back. Well, I know my spot.
Yeah, and that's.
Why do I always have to stand next to the wall?
I always stand in the back. I know where I'm supposed to be. There we go. There we go. There we go.
I'm gonna jump at the next. Thank you all. Thank you all. Great. It's history. Thank you, brother. Come on.